What achievements have been significant for the Communist Party of China's endeavours over the past century? A resolution offers the answers to this question. What is the secret to the CPC's success? Today, we're talking to three venerable guests to find out. Our first guest is Martin Jacques, a well-known scholar and political commentator. This year marks the 100-year anniversary of the founding of the CPC, and the resolution states that the party is still in its prime. Is longevity the secret to success, or is there something more?
I think the point is that the Chinese Communist Party actually keeps reinventing itself. It's managed to keep addressing the problems as they are, not the problems as they were. So, for example, it was really concentrating on the problem of economic growth and the reduction of poverty. Now it's moved on to a new question, which by and large is a serious problem which has so far been neglected, which is the disparity in income and wealth in the country, which is very serious and has been growing over a long period. So I think the way to stay young, maybe there's a lesson for all of us in this, whatever age we are, is to keep reinventing yourself, to keep reinventing the party, and in that way it stays young, it doesn't age.
In your opinion, why is the CPC able to lead China to achieve rapid development of the economy and people's living standard?
First of all, the Chinese Communist Party is very, very deeply rooted in Chinese society. And the second point is that the Chinese Communist Party has a way always of looking forwards. It's always thinking ahead. So you have these two characteristics of the Chinese Communist Party. One, drawing from the past, and the other is always looking to the future. Now, the two are not the same thing, but if they're together, they're a very, very powerful combination. And, you know, the reason why the Chinese Communist Party is so energetic, so dynamic, so forward-looking, is that it's always thinking ahead. It's always trying to imagine what the problems of the future might be, or what the problems are in the present that have to be solved. This is very important.
Our next guest is Kerry Brown. He is Professor of Chinese Studies and Director of the Lao China Institute at King's College London. The resolution describes China's democracy as a whole process, the people's democracy. How would you interpret this concept? And how would you compare it with democratic systems in the West?
I mean, democracy has become a very contentious term, and the two summits of democracy that were recently held, one hosted by the United States, one hosted by China in early December, I suppose showed that there's just very, very different understandings. I mean, I suppose if you remove the word democracy because of the ideological issues between the Enlightenment West, if you want to call it that, that's Europe and America and their alliances, and then China on the other side as a major economy and a major country. I mean, really what you're talking about are, do governments deliver things which improve people's overall kind of well-being, not just physical, but kind of spiritually, mentally. The best outcome would of course be that there would be much deeper dialogue about how you improve performance of government systems. At the moment, alas, we do have a lot of contention and disagreement, particularly between the United States and China. And I think that would be good for the context for that to change in the next months and years.
Now, China has achieved the goal of eradicating absolute poverty, and the country says it will continue to promote common prosperity. What do you think of China's achievements to date, as well as its goals for the future?
The eradication of absolute poverty was a really significant milestone. I mean, before, estimations varied, but from 20 million to sort of 50 million people, assessed to be living on less than a couple of dollars a day in China in the last 10 years. Seeing that, basically that situation go, I mean, this is a huge step forward. In terms of the data of people living in absolute poverty, both in China, of course, which is the big achiever, but also in India and elsewhere, I mean, the world is significantly better now than it's been in any time in modern history. So it's a massive, massive achievement.
Our final guest is Dylan Walker. He is a young communist from the United States. The resolution has stressed the importance of upholding the one country, two systems policy. How would you evaluate the current situation in Hong Kong after the implementation of the national security law?
I think as we saw with the protesters over the past few years, especially in 2019 at the height of this, unrest in society made by this small amount of protesters there, it did nothing to help the people of Hong Kong. It did absolutely nothing. It was just, as we saw, people maybe being used by outside forces. That's a direct interference with China's internal affairs, that does go against the bedrock of any diplomatic relations between China and other countries. But now seeing the national security law, it's seeing a more stable development of society, and that it's just a lot more peaceful. It's going to bring more economic opportunity for the city of Hong Kong as well, to integrate it more into the country's development in the long term.
The resolution highlighted the importance of China's traditions and cultures, saying it is a prominent strength that enables China to gain a firm footing amidst global cultural interaction. How would you evaluate the role of traditional culture in China's development?
One extremely important point that comes to my mind would be that China, nowhere in its history or in its genes or in its culture does it have any type of, hegemonic or imperialist thinking or way of thinking, as you see with the West. China doesn't have this thinking of wanting to invade other countries or start a war to help to further its own development. And it's proving that through this type of thinking, through its traditional culture and through its ideology in terms of its diplomacy, that it's a new way of development and relationships between countries around the world, especially the major powers. And now we see the community with shared future for mankind, where you have a true sense of China wanting to build a community and get all countries to work together, as opposed to one country being on the top and trying to police the whole world, tell everyone what to do, you have to follow my thing. Whereas it's more of wanting to coexist peacefully, and it's a win-win situation for everybody as opposed to one person winning.
The 6th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee is a tribute to history, but also a prospect for the future. In the past 100 years, the CPC has made a series of unparalleled achievements. The CPC and the Chinese people will work towards greater glories and celebrate victories on their new journey.